right, we're officially a minute late now, so we'll call the committee of the whole meeting to order and try and get some volume out of this microphone. Is that better? Please call the roll.
Alderman Stralchek?
Here.
Alderman Tlaco is here but away at the moment. Alderman Meyer? Here. Alderman Hancher?
Here.
Alderman Bach?
Here.
Alderman Parrish?
Here.
Alderman Schneider?
Here.
Alderman Gebhardt?
Here.
And Mayor Nurbin.
Here. First up, we have approval of the minutes from January 9th.
Move approval. Second.
Any comments or questions? Oh, there's the volume. All right. Comments, questions on the minutes? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And the minutes are approved. Next up, we have our only discussion item on the agenda, consideration of conceptual land uses and zoning classifications for the land south of Donges Bay Road, west of Bear Road, north of County Line Road, and south and east of Enterprise Drive. Director Tollefson's going to give us an overview here.
Right, thank you, Mayor. Good evening. We are talking about land use opportunities for the areas described by the mayor. What's that? Is it on?
Just get closer, yeah.
Oh, okay. So this has been an area of discussion for a while, but all of you are familiar with last year's conversation and Economic Development Board's recommendation for pursuing potential industrial uses in a different portion of the city. And as a result of that, we talked about what would we do with this particular area. And it was in part because the Common Council had seen 2 consultations for single-family residential and plex development in the area. So we had advanced a policy discussion about those future land uses last year. The Common Council gave staff the direction to go ahead with sewer analysis, but not enter into that contract until early 2024 and budget appropriately for this year. As I mentioned, there were 2 specific residential development proposals brought forward by 2 developer and home builders, along with the long-term family landowner of this property. And there was somewhat mixed reviews of those developments. There was some consensus among the council that residential may be a good fit for this area, but there were also concerns about relinquishing that industrially zoned land. So these 2 policy issues have somewhat been tied to one another. When I last spoke to the Committee of the Whole in July of last year, you asked us to advance residential zoning analysis as it relates to this portion of those 2 areas for the policy analysis. So the other component of this, and I tried to outline in the memo, is just kind of the chronology of the history of this particular study area, and it goes back to the late 1990s. So in 1999, there was a proposal to rezone this area, including the area on the east side of Bear for future residential use. In 2009, this same property owner came forward and advanced a proposal to rezone 17 acres of the property to residential and allow the northern 50 or so acres to remain industrial. That ordinance eventually was tabled and then ultimately died. It just never advanced, or action was never taken on it. Also in 2009, the city went through a comprehensive plan process, and this area was identified as a neighborhood that needed further zoning analysis because of the mix of uses and just the lack of development that had occurred in the area. And then in 2012, staff initiated a housing policy analysis where we looked all-inclusively at the city to determine where residential development could occur at densities at something less than 5 acres per home site. And that was really the result of how we got to the central growth residential area, the east growth area, which is now Uleo Creek. There was also a west growth area identified, but there were all different types of neighborhoods identified where we could do something other than 5 acres, and this was one of those neighborhoods that was identified as a potential infill residential development site. And then through 2009 and really basically 2021, there were a variety of things that happened. We had the 2 residential development proposals, but staff was also approached by the private market for some low-scale industrial uses. There was discussion about relocation of the bus company in this location. There was a proposal for a scaffolding company, a landscape garden center. That was Secret Garden. They ultimately went out on the corner of Dungeness Bay and Wauwatosa Road. And then we've also been approached for multiple family at this location over the years. So, you know, staff, I've been here for over 20 years. I've met with the property owner several times, met with the property owner with various administrations and various forms of the Common Council, and development in some shape or form is just not happening in this location. We also pursued larger corporations and kind of prepared these sites as potential headquartered sites for them, such as Kohl's, Astronautics, Airgas. Ultimately, those companies chose other locations, but the city was really a partner in trying to attract those larger corporations to this particular location. Talked about extending TIF districts, helping to pay for the infrastructure. So in terms of the overview of the neighborhood, we decided that we really thought it would be appropriate to expand our study area further south to County Line Road. So essentially we're looking holistically at about 230 acres. There's a mix of light industrial and residential. The area does have Trinity Creek, wetland restoration area as part of it. The interurban trail is within close proximity. Lilly Nature Preserve. Those green belts do lead ultimately to the Mequon Nature Preserve. And there's agriculture to the west. There is a lot of other environmental features, including the woodlands, wetlands, and some prairie areas. And the area is nicely situated in terms of its proximity to town center, the commercial area at Dungeness Bay and Cedarburg Road, and then also commuter routes to job centers. So when you think about future residential development and the attraction for home buyers, there is some amenities and some ideals that make this site attractive. The area to the south, the laser pointer isn't here. The area to the south of Lily Lane Nature Preserve, right now that's actively farmed. There had previously been a conservation subdivision proposed there. Some of you maybe remember the developer by the name of Bill Fine. Ultimately, that project did not go forward. So in terms of our analysis, we started really with trying to look at existing residential zoning districts that might be appropriate for the area. And included in your packet was a chart where we just kind of ran through various scenarios at various densities, including leaving a portion of the study area at the very north end as zoned industrial, and highlighted what type of square footage you would get from an industrial development, in that delineated space, as well as the number of dwelling units translated based on our existing zoning districts. We prefer to use existing zoning districts where it's appropriate and makes sense, and we do think we have a number of residential zoning districts that could apply here. Ultimately, staff is looking at basically a proven land use pattern that has been tested and successful in Mequon as we've transitioned either from industrial or commercial zoning to single-family residential developments. Examples of this are Windsor Estates, which is at the north side of the Mequon Business Park, Essex Place, Hidden Creek. We also use Greenbrier, Astor Woods over on Port Washington Road to essentially do the same. So there is a really proven track record of that land use pattern in the city. Typically, right, we haven't used, other communities will use multiple family to transition from their commercial or industrial areas, and we typically, right, haven't done that except for in town center for a very specific reason. The chart really shows, there's a couple asterisks and notes at the bottom of the chart. It really shows maximization of those zoning district standards applied to the land. It doesn't discount land for the wetland areas. It doesn't discount land for roadways, stormwater management, other features or district standards that would have to be applied. Essentially, maximization under all of these variety of land uses that we could, densities that we could look at, could get you anywhere from 2 to 400 dwelling units, and at a density of 1 to a little over 3 dwelling units per acre. But really, when you apply the development standards, we're probably looking at somewhere between 225 to 250 dwelling units, and that in totality would put you at a density of 1 to 1.5 dwelling units per acre. Connection to public water and public sewer is available, and they can be separately evaluated. There is portions of the property that are outside of the sewer service area, and there are portions that are in. So once this is rezoned, we would of course work with any prospective developer to make some decisions about that infrastructure. The water connection policy really addresses any scenario here and gives both staff and the council ultimately guidance on how to move through that decision-making process. And it's difficult to probably master plan this like we did with Central Growth, or what we are hoping to do for the Southwest Industrial area, just because there's private lift stations serving the development on both the east and west side. So there are some challenges that are presented from an infrastructure standpoint. Just, kind of broad estimations, you're looking at a potential value at development of some of those more realistic numbers, somewhere probably in the $60 to $70 million range, and that includes, all the area all the way down to the County Line Road, the southern part of the study area. As I mentioned, there's access to public water. The majority of the area is served by sewer. This is in the sewer service area, and it cannot be served solely by gravity. Engineers' initial assessment would likely indicate that there would be a private lift station needed. And again, the master planning of that kind of proves to be a little bit more challenging. So in terms of the market and its context, the locational context, we've seen that an interest for industrial uses has lagged over a couple of decades for this area. The area had been dismissed by corporate entities for a more campus-like setting. The industrial private market interests have been somewhat limited in lower grade industrial type development. There has been the private residential market interest, and we would say that it's attractive due to the environmental features and access to those neighborhood amenities and jobs. So depending on the feedback from the Common Council, what staff would do would delineate the locations of the types of land uses that may be of interest, develop zoning, again, utilize existing zoning where we can. We would walk through some assessment to determine whether a sewer service area expansion would be desired, and of course the city plays a role in that process. That process is about 6 to 9 months in order to get approval, because it goes through MMSD and sewer PAC as well as the DNR. And in that during that process, we would meet with property owners that would be affected by the change in zoning, and once we get our arms around all of that, then we would advance the specific changes to individual properties as well as the new zoning to the Planning Commission for their recommendation and on to Common Council for approval. Staff would suggest that appropriate transition would be to, again, utilize that plex zoning at the very north end of the study area to transition from industrial to residential. Probably utilize what we have done both in Central Growth and Uleo Creek, where we really want to encourage a conservation style neighborhood development, particularly in the central part because of the Lily Lane Nature Preserve and some of the wetland features that are present in that central area. So that allows for some a limited half of the land area to be dedicated to a 1/3 acre lot, and then the remaining has to be a half-acre lot. And then as you transition to the south, utilizing a 3/4 acre minimum lot size. Again, that is likely to probably go through a conservation design as well because of the environmental features. Immediately south of county line is Brown Deer, the village of Brown Deer. Those are established single-family residential neighborhoods. Those, per the zoning, are anywhere from 15,000 to about 20,000 square feet per lot. So again, you're looking at that 1/3 to 1/2 acre lot sizes in those Brown Deer neighborhoods. So I'll leave it up to the committee of the whole to discuss and ask staff any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Kim. We'll open it up to the committee here to provide feedback on the plan. I think from my standpoint, whether we've got 25 years of no action in this industrial zone land, and whether there's something coming or not, eventually even this will run out. So I think we need to keep an eye to the future for future industrial land in the Southwest regardless. I'd rather be ahead of this and push a direction rather than just be going along and letting another 5-10 years pass and let time force us to be in a desperate position later. I want to be forward-looking and proactive rather than reactive. But with that, open it up to the committee. Alderwoman Schneider.
I actually addressed this a bit to you in an email I sent you today. I was trying to ascertain how much land is left in Mequon that is zoned industrial and not yet developed or currently unoccupied. And I think you said 185 acres.
Yes, so there's scattered industrial zoning, and it includes, my tally includes this at 185. There are some parcels that are larger in, like the 20 acre range, but the majority of them would probably be in the 4 to 7 acre range or less. The areas that tally that 185 is here. Some remaining acreage. There's about 30 acres left in the Mequon Business Park too. Land available, which is about maybe 5 or 6 acres in East Corporate Parkway. And then the mixed commercial zoning that's allowed in Uleo Creek. That's not necessarily, medium or heavier style industrial development. That's more like contracting businesses. What's not included in the 185 acres is about 250 acres of the land that we're looking at in Southwest Mequon for industrial. If you recall, that land is currently zoned as rural industrial. It allows for industrial. The zoning district's very limited in terms of its permitted use, so all industrial would have to go through a conditional use grant process. So that is zoned for that, and that would be an additional 250 acres.
And how much of this land is zoned industrial or is buildable? Some of it's obviously not buildable.
There's this area, probably about 70 to 80 acres, I would say, at the north end. I mean, at the very north end, it's about 50. And then as you head down where Enterprise cul-de-sac is at the very kind of north west corner there, there's about an additional 20-some acres.
One additional question. You've been here a long time, so you just have a wealth of knowledge in the background of this. What were the concerns or the reasons that the businesses that you did work with in regards to this setting that caused them to move elsewhere? What were the restrictions, et cetera?
I'm not sure that we got clear answers for them. Obviously, Airgas, located in Germantown, in their business park along Mequon Road. I think, Washington County has always been a little bit more aggressive in terms of their economic tools. The other one was Kohl's, and ultimately they made the decision to stay, at their current campus. We even had proposed area along in the Uleo Creek area to them at the time. And I don't recall, a conclusion with Astronautics.
Just curious. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Astronautics wanted, I know more about that one because of the industry I'm in. They wanted to be more south than north because a lot of their employees are, from the south side or the northern suburbs of Chicago even. So it didn't make sense for them to move north. The other two notably are along highways 41 and 45,
Yeah.
which is desirable because there's freeway access, and that's one of the big things holding our business park back is there's no good way to get to the freeway. Had they built the freeway bypass that was planned in the 50s to go right through that land, would have been a different story, but it never got built. And we ended up with the business park we have in the place we have it. Alderman Parrish.
Hey everyone, here to speak about just this zoning topic and weigh in. First, Kim, thank you for that presentation. It was really well thought out and actually addressed some of my concerns as well, so thank you. I'm not gonna, I had written all these comments, but I'm instead just gonna ask a couple of questions because I view my role more as, you kind of all know what I think already on this subject. So I just wanted to summarize kind of the policy questions, I think, that I'm just hoping that you're thinking about, and then filling in some quick gaps. First of all, one of my questions for you is, like, how big do you want Mequon to be, population-wise? And then I'm going to just give you a quick data point, which is that over the last 12 years, we've grown by over 9.5%. We've gone from 23,000 people to 25,337 people. So that's an additional 2,200 people, which is 9.5% growth. This new project, if you look at the nice spreadsheet, it shows about 300 additional units coming online. And when you look at U.S. census data of 2.59 units per household, that equates to approximately 777 additional people, or a 3% increase in the population. There's a bunch of follow-up questions I'll let you ask if you find that data point interesting. But how big do you want Mequon to be? I mean, we've grown a lot over the last 10 years, that's my point. Does uncertainty about the water supply affect your decision-making? The city attorney did a nice job providing us a memo, which I'm not going to publicly summarize, but now that you've seen the memo and you know that perhaps an amendment is in order with Milwaukee Waterworks, or at least that's my personal opinion, not the city's opinion, is it responsible to make decisions about either zoning area knowing that you could be jeopardizing the contract even further? So that's that question. If it turns out that industrial at the southwest side of town is not feasible, will you regret having rushed to this decision? And so my concern here is, one of the missing data points is, what is the cost of running sewer and water to the southwest side? And I have no idea. I'm convinced it's going to be $10 to $30 million. Who knows? This is a missing data point that you don't have. From a developer's perspective, I would just say that no developer is going to pay that up front to bring water and sewer to that side of town. And so we will be asked, the only way to make something happen will be via TIF. We'll have to create a TID, which will delay any tax revenue for 20 plus years. But we would accomplish our goal. We'll get development on the southwest side. So I'm not convinced that you're all going to vote yes to bringing sewer and water to the southwest side. So just ask yourself, will you have regret making this decision too soon? Are we trying to accommodate the property owner, who naturally, if I owned the property, I'd want to move it along too? And that was really interesting to hear all the industrial developments that have been kind of proposed over the years. The data point I just wanted to add to this discussion to supplement what Alderman Schneider had asked, which was how much industrial is left. First of all, there's no buildings for sale in the park, the business park. There rarely are. It's a highly desirable industrial park. It's very successful. Contrary to what you've heard, there's almost no space available in the park. There's a total of 30,000 square feet available in a bunch of little spaces. There is a total of, so Kim and I didn't have a chance to reconcile our data, but I'm pretty sure there's only about 40 industrial acres available inside the business park. That's about 10 parcels, with the average parcel being about 4 acres, which Kim agrees with. Those only accommodate small 10 to 30,000 square foot buildings. So the question is, when the next company needs to expand, you need about 10 acres for 100,000 square feet, just to give you an idea of how much land you need. So we can no longer accommodate any more large facilities. So just want to make that very clear, unless we bring the Southwest Industrial online. Don't our residents want a more deliberative and analytical process like we did for Uleo Creek and Port Washington Road? Just felt like there was a lot of stakeholder meetings. In some cases, there were studies that were done. I'm not quite sure that we're doing any of that for either one of these zones yet. So I don't feel like we've gone through the same process that we've gone through for other major decisions. And finally, don't we want our residents and nearby businesses like a chance to give input? I know we're giving input, and it's really convenient that we have a survey coming up, a community survey. And so when you ask questions about like how big do you want Mequon to be, and how do you feel about bringing water and sewer to this part of town, and I mean, those are survey type questions, I think. What do you think? So those are my comments. I respect whatever you all do. My opinion is this. It's simply that we slow this down, so slow it down. Don't pursue the rezone until water contracts are amended. So that's request 1. 2, water and sewer costs for the Southwest Industrial relocation are further vetted. And 3, a little more public input for both study areas, and let's gather a little more input, which I heard Kim was planning on doing once you've decided, but I guess I'm saying let's gather the input and then decide, so we have all the input. And I'm very much looking forward to your thoughts, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. I'll make the point we are not rezoning anything tonight. We are talking about doing exactly what you are suggesting and going to the next step and getting that info to inform a decision. So I appreciate your comments, but they're right in line with what we plan to do next if we signal that that's what we're interested in. We're talking about conceptually, are we interested in pursuing this more or just keeping the status quo? Responding to a couple of your points, Mequon tracks well below the national average for residents per household. It's closer to 2.2, so it won't result in nearly as many people as you surmised. Kim's numbers were maximized. As built, it would never even come close to that because that didn't include roads and other infrastructure. It was just straight up chunking up the land. That's why they're advertised as maximums. I had a different take on the attorney's opinion on the water contract. Yes, it should get re-amended, but there's little risk in not getting what we want in that. That was my take on your report, because the waterworks is desperate to sell water to customers. So it's an administrative thing that needs to get cleaned up. It's not something we should be cowering to or being afraid to make policy about, because it's simply an administrative thing to clean up. The contract's not even with the waterworks, it's with We Energies. It's that old. And then regarding the Southwest, the main sewer interceptor is in the road right on the south side of the study area, so there's no huge infrastructure lift to get it there. It's already there, it just has to come across the street. That needs to be further studied, but it's not like there isn't sewer in the area, and there's a ability through a contract amendment to get water right at the corner, because our second location used to be there, but we voted to put it closer to the residential development to the east just within the last year. There's not huge infrastructure challenge. Yes, it does need more study, but there's no there's nothing technically infeasible or even, frankly, all that challenging about sewering or watering that part of town. The infrastructure's right there. It's not tens of millions or that. It needs to be studied, and it can be done in phases. And yes, it may require some financing mechanism, but we are going to run out of industrial land in this area anyway. That's a natural choice, in my opinion, because of its proximity to the freeway, the very intensely industrial uses to the south and west, and not much else is going to happen in that part of the city anyway, other than its current state. And I think it's ripe for being an economic growth engine for the city in the future. One of the problems we have right now is we're becoming heavily reliant on single-family taxpayer dollars, where about 84% of our budget is paid through that, and it's a healthier percentage is somewhere below 80. So we're trending in the wrong direction that way. It's gone up recently. I've just been looking at the data, and we need to be thinking now so that in another 5 or 10 years, when something finally gets going, we're in the right spot. And we're not creeping up towards 90%, which would put us in a very bad spot from a single-family homeowner perspective anyway. And now I've said enough, and I'll give it over to Alderman Strelchak.
My biggest question and concern, I know we've debated this space. I trend to like industrial near industrial. People know what's there. People know what to expect. As soon as we switch things from, what was it, urban industrial? Not urban. Which
Rural industrial?
Yeah, rural industrial to industrial. I think that gives rights for people to, that come in. We could end up with some development that we maybe don't desire, and in the tenure of time that I've spent on council, the biggest issues are developments next to residential areas that are changing. They're typically supportive of downsizing or downgrading the zoning, from like industrial or highly dense to more single family. They're typically more supportive of that in general. If there is a development that goes in near residential, water issues become a discussion item, and those are kind of like the hot buttons that we see. So I think the southwest portion of the city could be appropriate, but I would be exceptionally cautious when entertaining it, from a council policy standpoint. I lived in Germantown prior to coming to Mequon. I couldn't afford to move here as, right out of college, and as soon as I was married, and then invested here and moved to the fine community of Mequon, where I'm pleased to stay. I'm planning on staying until I, at least retire. So, and I grew up in that area. I grew up just west of County Line Road off of Donges Bay. That area has a couple really nice neighborhoods that are in there, and they're in the pocket, but they're also butting up against new industrial development that's going on over there. From a Germantown standpoint, they got the industrial park that's on Mequon Road. They've got the other one that's over closer to 145 and Donges Bay as well. So I just, again, a little bit of caution as we're intermixing industrial and near residential. Like, as a council, I want to make sure that we're cognizant of where this goes. I don't like switching our already industrial zoned property to residential to look for industrial elsewhere. If the future...
But that's not what we're doing. I'm going to cut you off there. We're considering changing it because nothing's happening.
Why is nothing happening?
I think we just heard 25 years of why nothing's happening. It's not a good location. It's not desirable. That particular land, if it was desirable, would have had something go on it.
So is it a land issue or is it a location issue? Because I think moving 2 miles further west isn't going to change the location issue.
Oh, it will greatly, yeah. Freeway access? It absolutely will.
Well, we also had, when we talked in July about the southwest portion of the study area along County Line in Wasaki, we had reached out to M7 and WEDC and Ozaki County Economic Development Board, and that was something we did in advance of starting to draft the zoning and presenting it to the council, because we wanted to do the same thing, kind of check the location, the market, the context. And there is just an explosion of industrial land and uses that are occurring along the I-41-45 corridor. And all three of those agencies had really positive response and reaction to that location being industrial, pulling potential jobs, employees from not only Waukesha County, Milwaukee County, Washington County, and Ozaki County. And Germantown has developed about 400 acres of industrial through a TIF at the Holy Hill exit, and they, as well as the village of Richfield, are talking about another 400 to 600 acres of industrial. So part of the feedback we got mid-year last year about that location was that its proximity to the freeway, proximity to other industrial uses, and proximity to the job, to employees, was ideal.
Yeah, location's fantastic, and we have lower taxes than anyone else around us. People save a lot of money putting their building in Mequon compared to Germantown or Milwaukee across the street.
The other thing I would say about the land uses too is, we when we did the housing policy in 2012, really what we had left was not areas like our growth areas that allowed for some form of substantial residential development that was within proximity to public sewer and public water, and our primary arterials. So the growth areas ended up being ideal for residential because of that. But part of our analysis looked at, other than 5-acre zoning, where are the pockets of really Class A single-family residential development left within those areas of infrastructure for public sewer and public water. Everything on the east side is really what's left is sort of Class B or Class C. I mean, an example is, land that's behind where Starbucks is on Port Washington Road. It's 20 acres and it's vacant, but a majority of it cannot be developed. And there's challenges to developing at that location. So, when you look at sort of east side and west side and potential for residential development, this happens to be, one of those locations where I think, you've got an opportunity to do some single family residential development within areas that have these types of amenities and have that infrastructure available to it, and not be in the rural area. And maintain that diversity of the 5 acres versus something else.
How does this relate to what the school's plan and the school's capacity is?
I haven't studied that.
Okay, I know for a fact that Wilson's been rezoned at least twice since I've been in office, just due to
Rezoned?
not rezoned, but redistricted.
Oh.
Twice.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Partially.
that happens periodically anyway as population changes. So
Can I just get my point out without being
Sure, but
debated
that's- I'm
50%
trying to
through? I mean, I
figure out
guess
how
I
it's
just
relevant to the conversation.
we've developed central growth. I don't agree with the fact that this is an ideal spot for additional single family homes. I think some of the larger acreage in some other parts of the city is better. I understand that you believe that, further west, I calced that out. It's like 4 miles further west is going to make a significant difference in investment in industrial space. I deal with industrial manufacturing on a daily basis. I've got global accounts that I'm assigned to, and I'm in and out of manufacturing on a daily basis. 4 miles for 90% of what they're doing, unless they're a transit company or a warehousing company that's, got hefty in and out, shipments coming in and shipments going out, and they're not just manufacturing on site. 4 miles isn't going to be a big deal to most of these places. So, let's not put the cart in front of the horse too far while we're evaluating this, and let's just look to, see what we can. I don't know that we've marketed that space south on Bear Road to the capacity of what we could have as a city moving forward. I know Germantown being on the 41-45 corridor is desirable. We're right in between the two, 43 and 41-45. That's always been a joy of living in Mequon. If I need to get to Green Bay quickly, I can just hop on 43 and head north. If I want to go to Oshkosh, I just cut over and get on 41-45. This being a location versus my house, it takes me about 18 minutes to get to the freeway from my house to go up 41-45, jig-jagging around over by Cabela's, or leaving from Homestead. I think it's 12 minutes to get to the freeway. This location would even be closer than that. So, I get some of the feedback that you might get. It might be a talking point as people are trying to squeeze us for TIF funds, but really, if people are investing, I would lean heavily on our commercial real estate agent on council. I'd listen to what Kim has to say, just based on some of the studies here, and I'd evaluate, the two, as well as, again, there's value in centralizing your types of business in one area, because it keeps Mequon feeling rural long term, and there's a lot of value in that moving forward.
Alderman Bach.
Kim, just a question on one of Alderman Parrish's points. So what's kind of the timeline? How soon did you need a decision on this, or kind of what's the driver there? And the reason I ask that is just because one of his points was getting some community input or upcoming survey, and getting some opinions about that area from some of the residents.
Well, this analysis was really driven by the committee of the whole, and asking staff to bring back analysis about what this would look like if it was zoned residential, as a way of proactively signaling to the private market really what the city desires in this location, versus having zoning that isn't really producing any development, and also at the same time rejecting residential development. We can only say no so many times before we're not going to maybe get any reaction to it. In my opinion, this is not a study area that is as significant as what we did with Uleo Creek. What drove market analysis for Uleo Creek, and what is driving market analysis for the Port Washington Road redevelopment, is that there is a variety of potential land uses, and there's a variety of play off of the two areas on that Port Washington Road corridor. We did not do extensive focus groups or working sessions when we talked about central growth. Central growth was distinct from Uleo Creek because of the fact that it was really ideal for residential. We already understood the public sewer and water infrastructure, and expansion of that. We knew that there was sewer capacity at that location. So the outreach done for central growth is similar to the outreach that I think staff anticipated doing here, which was to reach out to individual property owners that would have, that would be affected by the rezoning, and those adjacent to it. It wouldn't be a large focus group like we did with Uleo Creek, where we invited major institutions, businesses, all sorts of property owners to come in and take them through an exercise of a variety of land uses. So, we have typically met one-on-one with individual property owners. That is a lot of work on our end, but we can usually accomplish that over the course of a couple weeks. And it would just be then a matter of, and if we can utilize existing zoning districts, which I think we can, we would probably be bringing this forward to Planning Commission probably in April. If not April, probably May for some decision making. If there's direction to do so by the committee.
Alderman Telacco, Alderwoman Telacco, sorry.
I think that there's been a lot of great points brought up. Ideally, I would like to see it stay industrial use as another kind of, we have an industrial park right there. I think we can still kind of develop the land there respectfully where it is. Ultimately, my decision would come down to is our survey. I would like to see what the citizens of Mequon would ideally want. I don't think that jamming a ton of residential in that area is the best plan or idea. Mequon is a rural community. It was a bedroom community. That's what makes Mequon unique. So putting all this, compacting everything into the middle of Mequon with all these housing and stuff, that wasn't the design or the concept of how Mequon became Mequon. So I'd like to see it kind of stay where it is, have that little outsprawling. We can talk about the southwest corner of Mequon as Mequon continues to grow and as we need it. But right now I think we need to get some questions on the questionnaire and really have the citizens guide us on this.
Alderman Hancher.
This area, both of these areas that we're talking about is in my district, District 4. And the proposed residential area south of the business park, I toured that with the owner. I met with the owner a couple times, and he's frustrated because, you know, he brings projects to the Common Council and it gets shut down. There has been no action whatsoever on businesses wanting to move there. It's been like that for years and years and years. So I think at this time you need to start moving forward. It's not going to happen, it doesn't seem like. And I would disagree with people saying that moving the business park further to the west won't make a difference. And I would disagree with that because if you look at it now, Germantown has a development just recently completed on Donjas Bay and Wasaki Road that they have they added warehouses, businesses that they have. You go down Wasaki Road to Brown Deer Road in Milwaukee, they just added 2 more. So when you tell me, well, it's not going to make a difference, well, I've just seen it happen in the area that we're proposing to be the industrial area. That's just right in that area. So I think it's time for us to move forward. Take what used to be wanted to be the industrial area on county line and north of there, and consider that to be residential, and move the idea of a business area to the southwest corner because that's really what it's suited for. It's not suited for housing. It's suited for industrial, a business park, because you already have on county line to the south of that area, you have storage area, lineage company, and then you also have all the other, and it's an ideal location for, it's right by the freeway. So my feeling is that we should move forward, and the possibility of putting homes in that area that did not move on industrial.
Alderwoman Schneider.
I just wanted to say that with regard to preserving Mequon's rural character, I look at it a little bit differently in that I appreciate infill development in Mequon. What I don't want to see necessarily is sprawl so that the entire open area that we love becomes suburb after suburb. I'd rather see houses built as infill open land that is suitable for residential development, that's already in the sewer water area in the core of Mequon. I have the residual concern, which I voiced to Kim, because I do think it's fiscally responsible to have a multi-pronged city with regard to taxes. I think that we don't want to lessen our opportunities in the industrial sector, and that's why I was trying to ascertain how many industrial sites are left. And I don't have a sense yet, from what I've heard, of the time frame that we're looking at to develop, which I agree with developing the southwest sector, but I don't have a sense of the time frame of that, and that's my one hesitation is losing this possible industrial area, which I think is suited to residential development in the absence of having someplace other to put what we need to do for our tax base.
I think the flip side, I will have you come up and speak in a second. Yeah, just come up to the podium. I think you're worried about losing the thing that's getting absolutely no development to begin with. So it's kind of a false argument. There's nothing happening. Nothing's going to happen. It's time. I think it's time to move on, and we're not going to come out tonight with a final decision on what to do other than keep it the same, and God knows how long it'll sit there, or consider doing something, some nice, high-quality residential and transition it like we have from other areas adjacent to commercial, where we blend it back in and make a nice residential area out of it. That's as far as we'll get tonight, and then depending on which way it goes, the wheels will be set in motion. We'll have a vote here shortly to stay the course and hope for the best, or move forward in a different direction with some details to be worked out later. Alderman Myers up. Please come up to the podium when Alderman Myers done.
Thank you, and thank you everybody for the comments. All good stuff. Once your land is gone, it's gone. And the industrial, for us, is a very important part. If we start putting more residential development inside of that area, of course that area will be gone for any type of industrial, whether it's small, whether it's larger, whether it's whatever, you're going to lose that aspect of it for it. Saying that on the flip side, the Mequon has always been a community that has single-family residential. We have just recently added, tons of apartments and tons of stuff to the city. Mayor brought up the fact that we're getting close to 90% of our tax burden on the residential, and it's not a bad thing. I mean, that's what has served our community well. If you're trying to say that we're putting all the tax burden on the residents, yeah, they got a lot of it on the residents, but when you take a look at what our actual tax bills are to the residents, it's very, very small. It's because of the fact that when we do build some residents and that it is high quality, you can't build anything for cheap in Mequon anymore, so there's a lot of tax base that comes out of that. But you also got to take a look at the community, and you got to take a look at what serves us best. Does another 200 or 300 dwellings serve Mequon community the best? I don't think so. I think the fact of eliminating some industrial area for us is going to be detrimental, because we won't have anything to do in the future. And some comments to the fact of that, things haven't been developing there for a long period of time, and now we got to do something about it. No, we don't. Because of the fact of that the property hasn't sold, in that, is that the responsibility of the city to change zoning for the benefit of the landowner? And I can understand totally the landowner's side of it, and wants to make money, wants to move on from it, wants to get it all done, and I can totally appreciate that. But it's not the city's responsibility to do that. It's not our responsibility to rezone places so that something becomes more sellable than it was in the past. I'm not sure what kind of marketing has been going on for that property. I'm not sure if the city has been a partner with trying to market that property, or it's just been kind of left out there and with the agents of saying, yeah, this property is available, instead of actually being out there and active, the owner or the city in conjunction with it being active and trying to attract people to it. So I don't have any knowledge of what that's going on, but it needs to be marketed to do that. And so I think with adding all those types of homes to this area over here, which is actually an area that's kind of, when you really take a look, it's kind of detached from the rest of the city in that area. So it's not really, it's part of Mequon, but it's not really part of the generalized, community inside of it for it. It's not really an infill. I mean, it's more of a filling on the outside of it, an area. So I'm not in favor of this, adding all those homes to this area inside of it. The point that a number of people have made, let's see what the residents have to say about it. And I agree with that. I mean, we do have this survey that will be out a little bit over a year from now probably. And coming back with those types of information from the residents is highly important to me to see what happens. I mean, that drove a lot of the central growth area and what the residents said about that, and also the east side too, that drove a lot of that from what they had to say. I respect what the residents have to say on it. And if they say go full force on residential development in that side area, then I'd say let's go for it. But I really want to hear what they have to say.
Would you like to come up, sir? If you please introduce yourself and get your name officially recorded in the record.
I'm Tom Jansen. I'm president of JPJ Corp., the property owner. The land is owned by our family, myself and my 8 siblings. I own property here. Mequon built a house 30 years ago. I also have 3 other siblings that live here in Mequon. So we have a stake in this. Personally, grew up in Mequon, in Lac de Cour subdivision as well. But I'd like to say the property's been marketed since 1990. Believe me, we have marketed this property with numerous brokers. Just spoke to additional brokers just in the last few months. The industrial wants to be along the interstate corridors. And I think one thing that the council's missing here is the commercial developments along Mequon Road. The success and the economic viability of those developments, Spur 16, Foxtown, and the other commercial developments in that area require the residential property owners to use those restaurants, the grocery stores, the dentists, the doctors. So don't ignore those people. Those are businesses that have made a big investment. The other thing to consider is there's a lot of empty nesters that would love to stay in Mequon. There's a tremendous amount of wealth here in Mequon. Consider the foundations here in Mequon, the philanthropy that's going to leave the city. You want to keep the elderly empty nesters with a plex development where they could be in a side-by-side. They don't want to have the maintenance, etc. This is near existing services. There is sewer and water there. There are the schools. The demographics are changing. There's a little bit of a demographic cliff as far as children and so on. So I think if we could just develop a mutual beneficial vision for the property, we can market it. But after 30 some years of marketing for an industrial, we've tried. Believe me, we have an interest in the industrial for many, many years, but we've tried very hard, and the marketers are telling us, or the brokers are telling us, that it's not here in Mequon. It's along the interstate. And I think the 3 to 4 miles does make a big difference, to be able to compete with the German towns, the northwest side of Milwaukee. So with that said, having the property in limbo
makes it very difficult to market it. You know, we're looking at 60 to 70 million dollars worth of improvements here that can go on the tax base much sooner than waiting another 30 years potentially for industrial. You know, quite frankly, I don't think it's in the best interest of Mequon.
Thank you. Alderman Bach's going to get the last word, and then I'm going to
You know, I mean,
wrap this up.
I've heard that, you know, Kim was planning on doing some, you know, or is willing to talk to neighbors or bring people in or do some interviews there and collect some data from people in that area. I've heard others say that they want to hear from, you know, from residents. I mean, do we have to decide this right now, or can we wait until we get some more data to make that decision?
We don't have to do anything we don't want to do. And by we, I mean you, because ultimately you're going to vote on it. Well, I guess I get a vote at committee of the whole, but I don't know that we do. It's a discussion item, but I will call a straw poll in a second here. But I think we're being incredibly short-sighted and by not considering some sort of change. This is 25 plus years of stagnant activity. It is infill, despite people saying it's not infill. It's infill. It's in and amongst other developed areas, keeping things tight and central and preventing sprawl. It's the kind of development we traditionally have supported. So we can provide some guidance on what pace to move forward. If that pace includes including it in a survey, fine. We're less than a year away, I think, from starting a survey, or about a year away. But I'm going to call for a straw poll now, and it's going to be a simple one. It'll be status quo, keep it industrial, or consider some sort of change throughout the course of the coming months that involves some sort of single-family element, generally consistent with what Director Tolleson provided, although that can be the subject of future discussion. So simple up and down. What? Who has a question here? Is it?
Well, there's a third option, which is we don't know what to do because we don't have all the data. So could a third option be, we've heard a lot of feedback tonight. Can we gather more data? I'm not necessarily saying the 2025 community survey, but like, I think Kim should go talk to all the industrial real estate brokers. I think we should get the costs of the sewer and water. There's just data to gather. So then because I might be a yes. That's my
You're
point.
not.
You're asking us to say one or the other.
I'm
So
saying.
why do we
I'm
why
trying to
can't we
ferret
just
out.
gather
There are several.
for another straw. That's all.
There are several hard no's amongst us here. I want to get past that. A yes is I'm willing to discuss it going forward and get more info, as you are suggesting. That it's a very simple decision. There are a handful of hard no's here, and there's some that are open to it with getting more info. Although we've been getting more info for quite some time on this site, and at some point we need to make some sort of decision to do something. But 2 questions, and it's going to be a simple
Not even a
up-down vote. We
question.
got to get going.
Regardless of which path forward, I definitely want to consult and understand what the school district can handle and a pulse. We haven't had a conversation with them in a while, and as we're looking at rezoning areas and adding up to, 200 to 300 residences, we need to talk to the school district to understand what their capacity capability is, number one. Number two, I feel you're incorrectly summarizing this, for lack of better words. Alderman Parrish asked for a third straw. I don't think anyone, I'm a hard no at this point, right? But I'm not closed-minded to listening to what a survey has to say. I mean, that's bad legislation and that's bad representation of your people. So, of course, I'm open to hearing this, but the energy moving forward, your opinion clearly is, redevelopment in this area is appropriate. You've stated that. I've stated a difference of opinion. Kim's got some facts to support that. I don't want to straw poll where we're saying we're willing to listen and willing to listen to what a survey has to say as a let's hit the ground running and let's continue. You all agreed as a council that we're okay moving forward with this. That third straw would be kind of critical here. Yes, of course, anything, maybe to divide the vote. Would you want to make a decision tonight, or would you want to wait for a survey to come out? Based on that decision, do we want to ask the question, hey, just where do you stand at this point? Even if we would include it as a survey item, what's the poll for, tonight on yes or no for reconsideration of this parcel? I think if we divide the question into two questions, I think you're going to end up with more of what you want and better direction for staff. Just a statement.
Trust me, we're saying the exact same thing. You're not getting my vibe. So I'm gonna clamp this off. Let's just go with how many hard no's do we have? How many hard no's? No, well, first of all, please turn your mic on, because no one can hear you online.
I'm sorry about what
But
I'm
he
saying
was
is
not
that
talking multifamily. We were talking plex development, side-by-side condos.
Plex is
that's-
still multifamily. There's another way of saying it. But anyways,
Side-by-side condos are a lot different than the kind of connotations that usually go along with multifamily. But go ahead. How many hard no's do we have on doing anything but industrial? I just want to see a show of hands. If dead set against changing from industrial.
Yeah, Mayor, I can't agree with that, what you're putting before us either.
Okay, because what I heard from a couple people was it was a hard no. And if it's not a hard no, then what more info do
Mayor,
we
I
want
think
staff
it's
to go
either
get?
go with your point of view, or that I think there's a handful of us that would like more information, and we'd like to hear from the residents before making
Okay,
any
then
decision.
this is the forum to state exactly what we want. So I've heard some desire to include this in a survey question. What?
I mean, a start would be to talk to, the people in the neighborhood, whatever the charrettes that you were going to do, kind of collecting information. I mean, just a little bit more of what people in that area are interested in.
It's difficult for staff to go and have a conversation with property owners unless there is some direction and some parameters to this. I think if there's an interest in residential, we have the framework of what that conversation is. There's limited number of property owners in this area that would be weighing in on that decision making. But I'm not necessarily hearing from the committee that the parameters related to the residential, that there's some consensus with that. So and I would be concerned about staff going out and leading with certain discussion points without there being consensus, because we go down a path with property owners and neighbors, and we come back here and it doesn't put our organization in a very good light if we can't follow through on certain aspects of what staff was out there saying. We lose credibility. And I don't want to do that.
I'd limit to something along those lines, to a survey question, and collect data that way, just to gauge general interest. But to meet with property owners in that regard is it's premature.
I mean, of the
If there's no support, it's hard to go to someone and say, what do you think of it?
Well, and of the 200 and some acres of the study area, for the majority of the properties that would actually be rezoned, we're talking about 2 property owners with that own the majority of this study area. The individuals on the east side of Bear Road are the ones that are referenced regarding the 1999 discussion that occurred, where they wanted to advance residential zoning on the west side of Bear Road and resolve their zoning, so that they had an understanding about what their neighborhood was going to look like going forward, right? That helps with values, that helps when they sell, that helps with insurance, that helps with their value. So yes, there's people outside of the 2 or 3 property owners, but I would need better direction and consensus before I can do a good job with the public.
Okay, so people sound like they're willing to learn more, but what more do we want to learn? And I'm not going to lead it. What more do you want to learn? Alderman Parrish.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll speak on behalf of Rob. He wants to know school data, just how it affects that demographics. The Southwest, for Southwest Industrial, would just like verification on, give us a budget range on sewer and water costs, please. Is it 5 to 10 million?
Well,
I know you don't need to, I'm not asking you to design it all out.
no, we're not. We're doing a contract to study the sewer analysis. That's what the council directed us to do in 2024 and set budget dollars towards it. So staff won't be doing those kind of estimates and analysis. That's forthcoming. You already gave us the direction
we asked for
to
that
do that.
several months ago in the context of this very discussion.
Okay, well, then I'll just be a hard no, because I'm not getting any data, because then we'll end up with no industrial if we can't feasibly do it on the southwest side. So
I think,
I think it's a really simple data point. It was $20 million for Uleo Creek. I know it's a totally different terrain. You're saying it's like across the street at an interceptor. It's like, whatever, just budget it. Is it under 5 million or is it
But
20
you
million?
gave us
we just
direction
said
to go and do that contract
we are
already.
contracting to do that study this year, as directed by this body.
Okay, well,
This is
okay,
very
so
body.
that data point will come back, is what you're saying.
So your feedback
for my
is
tone
wait
there,
till
by the
that
way,
wait till that feedback comes back to talk about it.
That,
That's-
yes.
Okay, there it is.
Yeah.
That's something actionable.
I just,
Let's let him finish one at a time. We'll get everyone's concerns. 'Cause I don't.
Sure, I'd like to work with Director Tollefson on correct data for the council as far as what is actually available in industrial on water and sewer and off water and sewer, so that the council knows, what I said was accurate. That there's under 40 acres available in the industrial park, and as a result, it's almost sold out. So just market data, vacancy, what land is available that's served by water and sewer. I think a question came up a lot tonight about environmental features of the subject study area. What percentage of it is lost to natural features. So those are just a few data points, and let me just let them.
Didn't you say something about interviewing? I don't know much about commercial development, but 4 or 5 commercial developers to say hard no,
Yeah,
hard no, nothing's going to happen.
Ask all the industrial brokers. I'll give you a big list. Do you think that this parcel is functionally obsolete for industrial? No one's ever going to come there? Because I think we all agree they're going to go to the south. The southwest side is great. It would be great for industrial. That's not the point.
Alderman Hansher.
I'm a little confused about why we have to ask the school district about whether it would be okay to have houses there, because we don't do that for any other development. We didn't, when the development of Swan Ridge, we didn't ask the school district, is this okay? We don't base our development on whether we don't know if the people who buy the houses have kids or not. That doesn't make, to me, that doesn't make any sense to have to ask just particular this development whether we should have the school district, is this going to be a problem for you? But we didn't do it for all the other subdivisions we developed. That to me, that doesn't make any sense. And in other cities, they don't ask that question because you can't predict who's going to live there or not. You don't know who's going to buy those houses. You don't know how many kids. You don't know if they're going to go to private school or public school. So you really, to me, you could ask them. I don't know what he's going to tell you. They already have their own surveys that they do, and if you look at their enrollment has either been staying about the same, or it trends down a little bit. But I don't know if we should. I don't know what how it's going to be enlightening us to ask the school district, especially because we haven't asked the school district in any other developments we've had. So that's my take.
Alderman Gebhardt.
I'd like to just weigh in. I've been a little bit quiet here, just trying to digest everybody's feedback, and obviously this is a pretty sensitive topic, but one of the things that I don't understand is I think one of our roles is to move things along. And some of the council members that are looking for additional information have been on this council for a number of years and been directly involved in this conversation well longer than I have. And I would expect that a lot of these have probably been asked and answered in the past. I think you know what the answers are. If at the end of the day you still think you need more answers, then just call it out as a hard no. And we know where you stand. But where I sit here right now, I believe that our job is to move things forward. From everything I've heard, there's been a yeoman's effort to try to go ahead and market this from an industrial standpoint. And I think that that clearly, for whatever reason, and I'm not smart enough to figure that out, isn't the right location. I will tell you, as a member of the Economic Development Board, the discussions that we've had as far as moving the industrial over to the southwest side is extremely positive. There's a lot of advantages for doing that if we're looking for more industrial opportunities, and I certainly think that it would yield a greater benefit as far as attracting people to come in and make their investment on the southwest side than where it is right now. So I would tell you where I stand right now is to move forward. I think it's important that, again, from a property owner standpoint, having some sort of a decision and clarity so that that property has some direction, I think is important and something that we have a responsibility to go ahead and get ironed out sooner than later.
Thank you. So no additional requests for information. Anyone else? This is the time. I want to make sure that when we next take this up, we have given proper direction to staff to have all questions answered in advance, because I do not want another meeting like this where we kind of circle and circle and circle. I've seen enough personally, but Alderman Strelchak.
Well, as we're looking at this parcel and potentially switching it to residential, I definitely want to understand the feasibility and the option for additional industrial and other areas in Mequon, right? From an economic...
Sounds like we're down to our last 40 acres. We should be doing it anyway. And vigorously, 40 acres is not much land.
Okay, but you're arguing that we should preserve industrial because we're down to our last 40 acres. I'm saying that as we're looking to expand it, we need to understand the feasibility to move it somewhere else. We're all agreeing we need industrial. That's the consensus here on council. We all agree that we need industrial. But is the shift the proper move to a different place? Are we going to end up with the economics that we were hoping for on this parcel but I haven't seen over the last several years in finding it somewhere else? Or are we better off leaving it zoned as it is and working as a city and maybe finding some ways and some policy to get some development and move forward on this parcel from an industrial standpoint? You know, we're not, the argument for shifting it from here isn't the argument for, like, we're going to abandon industrial. We're not going to abandon industrial.
No, it's not what I'm saying at all.
Okay.
It's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying regardless, if we're down to 40 acres, we should be hitting the southwest with more vigor and enthusiasm, because we're going to run, that's my point earlier, we're running out regardless of what we do with this. It's just a matter of when we run out. I don't think we want to wait till when we run out to do more in the southwest. And if this has been stagnant for 20 or 25 or 30 years, why are we holding out hope that next year will be the year. We sound like Dallas Cowboy fans up here.
I don't know the reasons as to why it hasn't moved. I don't know enough of that tonight to make a decision.
I think that's
And there
why
was
staff
already- there
shared
was
their
already
comments
direction
on the things
given
we've tried
to-
in the past. We've heard from the property owner. He's been trying to sell it for longer than I've been an adult.
I mean, we
Um,
presented draft zoning districts for the Southwest Industrial in July, and we're given the direction to move that forward.
I'm not saying no to that.
But it sounds like that you're questioning that directive tonight based on this.
It's not the case.
Alderman Meyer, and then we're gonna.
Okay, my information that I need for is this: if we go residential, and it may be difficult to get this information, but what would be economically viable for this piece of property? And what I'm saying is that, yeah, we go, okay, let's go residential. All of a sudden, there's a huge development that wants to go inside there, and it far exceeds what we would be willing to put inside there, like some of the previous ones that we had come before us. I don't want to go back in circles again and then have somebody come back and deny something like that. So I'm trying to think, because you got a nice little spreadsheet here saying we can go with this, we can go with that, we can go with this, you know, and that's what they'll all fit, and it's great and nice that I see all this. But what would be kind of, so in a broad sense, be economically viable with the amount of dwellings to go inside there? We may have a development come forward and say, we can't do anything unless we got 400 units inside there.
Well, we shared that. In the packet, there are the two concept residential development proposals by the two developers and home
We did, we
builders.
turned
And
those
those,
down, yeah.
what's that?
We did, and there was a number of those we thought was too expansive for.
I'm
for-
saying they're in your packet
Yeah.
as what was the market reality, at least in 21 and 2022. Not only from a number of dwelling unit count, the density per acre, but potential value.
What? No, I
So-
think that's different than what Alderman Meyer's asking for. Those were things that the market tried to get us interested in and went for advisory hearings on. What we're asking for here is something different than that. It's to dictate what we would like to see and rezone it to that, which is some of what you had put together. Maybe people missed the point a little bit in the packet, but what Kim put together was functionally different than what those developers put together. They're much less dense and much less impactful than what those proposals were for. So I'm not saying go for what those developers wanted. We already rejected those. I'm saying if we want residential here, we dictate what we would like. And it has to be something that sort of makes sense functionally, like blending it in from Plex, couple family condo setup to single family to the south, like we've done in multiple other locations in the city successfully, as the director outlined in her report. Not asking for anything much different than we see elsewhere in the city. Those previous concepts that were brought forward were quite a bit different in some regards. But we don't have
So
to, we're not going to.
You're asking us to take the proposed zoning that we would use and then design the site to show the council what the outcome would be?
No.
Well, we have done that before. We did that with the town center zoning district and
Well,
central growth to show some potential layouts.
I think when I'm making up words for Kim now. I think she gets confused when we ask for something like that, because you're going to have to almost design the site to do a ROI and do an economic analysis on it. It's not
Right.
not an insignificant amount of work.
Right, I mean, I think these are snapshots of what you would expect, probably not to a T, right? But if the northern portion was zoned to allow for Plex, which our Plex residential development allows for 4 units per acre, typically the developers haven't achieved that because of our other development standards. We're typically in the 2 unit per acre density range. And then as you would move south, you would see similar to what you're seeing here in terms of a conservation subdivision with single family lots that, range in have smaller lot sizes but are based on either 1 acre density or 3/4 acre density or 1/2 acre density. And that's what the next phase would do, is to delineate these spaces and be able to assess how many units you'd likely get in that area. But without staff going through an analysis of road design, stormwater management, efficiency of the actual subdivision layout, we wouldn't get you any more closer to an assessment than really what is here, or hiring a firm like we have in the past to take our proposed zoning, apply it to some sites, and give you some concepts of what you would expect from private development. But I think you already have those.
Just easy. It's easy, I promise.
Okay. I want to get all the additional info requests out because I don't.
I
Doesn't
think
feel
what
we're
I
making
think
any
what Alderman
progress here.
Meyer wants, and kind of what I'd like to see is, if you and I are sitting for coffee, hey, here's the proposals came in at this. We think the density should be this. Here's what it looks like. We have a bunch of different ranges in the packet tonight. Really, just kind of rounding that down to, really to get a pulse check on what development is recommending, without having to go through the design process. Alderman Meyer objects to higher density in multiple different areas in the city. You're going to get that objection from him. I tend to mirror similar to him on that, but, had been a little more lenient in other areas.
But I need direction then from the committee. Are we looking, do you favor 3/4 acre? Do you favor what we've done in Uleo Creek, somewhere between 1/3 and 1/2? We've run the scenarios already. So in order to get you closer to some expectation of units, I need to know something between 1/3, 1 acre, plex, 2 units per acre, 4 units per acre. Otherwise it's exactly the same as what's in the chart already.
Well, why don't
Unless
we
I go
try
to a
why
further
don't we
design
try 1
assessment.
unit per acre?
What's that?
Why don't we try 1 unit per acre? And I know it's going to be different. You could just say, hey, there's how many acres here, and it's so many units. But there's also infrastructure that takes away some of the acreage and stuff like that. So if you can see something that was like 1 unit per acre.
With
instead
no
of the-
plex. You don't want to see any plex or any, so just
If it was some
1 acre
plex in-
densities.
If there was some plex inside, there was a buffer
So
towards that.
1 acre net density over the site. There'll be some that's smaller, but then there's other things that go on. Is there some consensus there? I see some heads nodding up and down that maybe wouldn't be nodding up and down before. Okay. That's actually pretty consistent with what Director Tollison had in there, actually. Once you added it all up. Well, sure, because you've got areas that are more dense, but you're doing conservation subdivisions. You have huge environmental corridors that are totally undeveloped and set aside for recreation and green space. It's not too far off. Maybe we're not so far off.
Yeah, and like every other conservation subdivision or plex development that you see, ultimately the Common Council is going to have control through the PUD process in terms of its layout, its design, and we're going to do a yield plan. The developer is responsible for doing a yield plan as they advance that rezoning request.
So there's maybe a general openness to having more discussion if we maybe understand the net density a little better. I'm not sure where we missed the boat there. Okay, and some additional information would like to be understood. So maybe we can take this up later this year when we get more information.
One more data point, sorry, Mayor. Just the projected buildable square footage for industrial, if it does get built out, it'd be interesting to compare the tax value for the residential versus industrial.
On the existing site?
Yeah, for the study
And does the committee want this information to come back at the same time that do you want to be evaluating this as we're going through the sewer analysis for the Southwest Industrial? Do you want this at the same time? What's the preference on timing? We're managing a work program that has a lot of other deliverables and timelines associated with them. So I need to better understand your desired time frame in which to review this as it relates to the information regarding the Southwest Industrial, because that does seem to be a component of decision
I'll ask a
making.
question that'll probably answer your question, but it's
Okay.
not the question. How many people want to see this as some sort of question on the survey next year? Very simple. Raise them up high. So that's a majority. So that dictates the timeline right there. So that's going to put it after the sewer study for the Southwest, because
Okay.
there'll be question development this year. We'll get survey results back
So
middle of next year.
maybe to Alderman Meyer's point.
I'm not saying I like that plan, but that's what the majority of the hands that rose up.
Some of the general data points for the committee to be able to use in the development of the survey questions would really be what you're looking for then, versus a finite assessment of the land. Okay.
I saw Alderman Gephardt raise his hand. Maybe I'll take one more comment.
So your question was whether or not the council members wanted to include that question in the survey. Guess I might think of it in a different term is how many of those that want that in a survey are going to use that to make their final decision? Because if we're going to wait a year and it's still a no, let's just call it what it is. Right?
That's the exact question I was trying to get out earlier, but no one wanted to take that question,
Yeah,
take
fair
the bait
enough.
on that question. So
I'm not convinced on, these conservation, it's unbuildable land, so then you just compact more and then you're like, look at what I saved, but that land was already saved. So when you say like the 1 acre lots, but it's like, well, we conserved all this area, but it was unbuildable to begin, I don't see it as really doing that much. So I don't like high density. So yeah, I would use the survey question because I would like to know how people view our new downtown area and what they do want to see growing there. We have multiple huge subdivisions already going in. The enclave still hasn't finished. We are being productive. We are building. Industrial will bring us tax revenue. We've already started half an industrial park there. And I understand the frustration of the land still being for sale. I understand all those points, but I also think that patience pays and that right thing will come at the right time. And to push things forward just to say, hey, we're making progress, isn't making progress if in retrospect it's not the correct decision. So
It sounds like density is an issue here, because if you ask this question on a survey and you ask about this particular area, I can tell you that people in my neighborhood are not even going to know anything about this area, so they're not going to be able to answer a question about this area on a survey because they don't have the map, they don't understand that. It's hard enough for me with the
we'll
packet.
put the map in
understanding.
the survey, just like the last survey.
But you could put something in there about density and something about that to get information. But I think it's tricky with this particular area. That's my opinion.
I'm not advocating for the survey, just the majority of those up here advocated for it. Okay,
don't
do we
need a
have enough
survey
direction for staff? We need to finish this meeting and get on with the next one. I think we're done. All right, we're going to adjourn, if there's a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned. We will immediately reconvene as the Common Council. And I just closed the wrong agenda. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please call the roll.
Alderman Strelchak,
Here.
Alderman Talaco,
Here.
Alderman Meyer, Alderman Hancher,
Here.
Alderman Bach,
Here.
Alderman Parrish,
Here.
Alderman Schneider, Alderman Gebhardt,
Here.
and Mayor Nurbin.
Here. Right out of the gate, we've got personal appearances and public comment. Citizens wishing to address the Common Council on any matter not on the. Just turn my own mic off. If you desire to be heard on agenda items, you may be heard when that item is considered on the agenda. Please speak into the mic. Time limit is 5 minutes. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak on any item not on the agenda? Hearing and seeing none. Move on to public officials' reports. I have nothing to add other than wishing everyone a happy Valentine's Day tomorrow. And we have a short presentation from under the city administrator's time here.
Thank you, Mayor. We have Ali Delano, the Director of External Affairs for MKE, the 2024 Host Committee, which is coordinating with the Republican National Convention, which will be held later this year in downtown Milwaukee. Unfortunately, Director Tollefson, on her way out, shut down the projector, which is the basis for Ms. Delano's short presentation this evening. So City Attorney Sadak is trying to get it back online. That may take a few minutes. And I'm going to politely suggest, Mayor, that we continue to move through the agenda and then come back to this item once we have liftoff.
Certainly, we'll move on to the consent agenda and circle back when the projector goes through its required cool down reheating cycle, so you don't shatter the bulb. Next, we have the consent agenda. We have 11 sets of boards and commission minutes from various committees throughout the past month and preceding months, and 2 ordinance first readings. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda
Move
minus
approval.
those first readings? Motion and a second. Any discussion on them? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And those consent items are approved, which brings us to our first readings. We will not take action upon these unless there's a suspension of the rules, but I'll read them nonetheless. Ordinance 2024-1658, an ordinance repealing and recreating Chapter 62 of the Mequon Municipal Code relating to the regulation of signs within the city. This was recommended at Public Welfare on January 9th and is a first reading. The next is 2024-1659, an ordinance amending chapters 10 and 58 of the Mequon Municipal Code in connection with approvals by the city's Architecture Review Board and adopting updates to the board guidelines for residential structures. This was recommended by the Planning Commission on January 22nd, and further recommendation is forthcoming by the Public Welfare Committee tonight. Is there an outcome on that vote?
It was recommended.
I'm assuming it's recommended. Fantastic. It is also a first reading. Looks like we have the projector back, so we'll jump back to item number 5B.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. As I mentioned, Ali Delano from the host committee is to give a short presentation about some of the host committee's efforts towards integrating the Republican National Convention with the local community, not only including the city of Milwaukee, but the greater southeast Wisconsin region. So I'm going to hand it over to Ali, and she's going to walk us through her presentation. Ali, thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, can you hear me?
Just need to push down on the button in order to speak into the mic.
Hello. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Ali Delano. Mayor, thank you for having me, council members.
Sorry, did the green light go off?
No, it's on.
Oh, okay, you gotta get really close. Sorry.
Okay. No, it's okay. Is that better?
That's better.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to update you, as Administrator Doan said, on the Milwaukee Host Committee and our efforts to welcome the Republican National Convention to Milwaukee and the region. I'll keep this quick. I'm going to start with a video just to give you some background on the Host Committee and what we're all about.
Milwaukee has a story to tell. We work hard, we play hard, and we love our community. From our fresh coast to our vibrant downtown, we're excited to show the world what we offer when we welcome the Republican National Convention in 2024. Milwaukee has a story to tell. We work hard, we play hard, and we love our community. From our fresh coast to our vibrant downtown, we're excited to show the world what we offer when we welcome the Republican National Convention in 2024.
Companies that call Milwaukee home are industry leaders on the cutting edge of innovation.
Our history runs deep. We're known for our breweries, our bikes, cheese, Cream City, brick, but there's a lot more.
Our people are what makes us. They're hardworking, they're tough and smart.
Milwaukee's a city
Companies that call Milwaukee home are industry
world-class
leaders on the
restaurants,
cutting edge of innovation.
some of the best sports teams around. And
Our
venues
city is
that are
one of the best
state-of-the-art.
places in the country
When you
to
visit
work,
Milwaukee, we know you'll come back.
live,
And in the summer of 2024,
Play.
we're making history again.
and learn.
Be part of our story. Join us at the
Milwaukee is a city waiting to be explored with world-class restaurants, some of the best sports teams around, and venues that are state-of-the-art. When you visit Milwaukee, we know you'll come back.
And in the summer of 2024, we're making history again.
Be part of our story. Join us at the Milwaukee 2024 Republican National
We're the
Convention.
nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that was created when Milwaukee was chosen to host the Republican National Convention. We work closely with the city of Milwaukee, the surrounding region, as well as the state of Wisconsin and local businesses to work towards a large economic impact on with the convention coming. We're expecting about 50,000 folks to be coming in for the convention. That will include 5,000 delegates and then 15,000 members of the media. So there's a lot of opportunity for Milwaukee and the region as well to thrive. The host committee is led by a board of directors. Our chairman is Reince Priebus. We also have numerous board members like Ted Kellner, John Schlifsky, and then our COO, Allison Prangy. The host committee has numerous responsibilities, but I just wanted to point out a few of the major ones. The host committee is responsible for raising the necessary funds in order to put on the convention. We're also responsible for and very excited about finding ways to engage and showcase the different businesses, both in Milwaukee and in the surrounding region. We work closely with the RNC's Committee on Arrangements. Those are the folks that work for the Republican National Committee who are in town working on the convention. We work closely with them to connect them with local businesses. We're also responsible and have the honor of recruiting thousands of volunteers to help put on the convention. Folks who want to showcase Milwaukee and the region and welcome the 50,000 plus people to the region. So as I mentioned, one of the things that we're most excited about is connecting convention planners with different businesses, both in Milwaukee and the surrounding region, and also statewide, actually. So the two ways that we do that for the majority are through our vendor connection portal. This is the internal portal. We have over 2,000 businesses. It was launched last spring. Any business, local business, can sign up. It's on our website, mke2024host.org. And this is what the convention planners really utilize when they're trying to figure out what businesses to connect, delegations and different folks coming in, looking for restaurants, looking for event planners, everything that you can imagine that folks might need. We are connecting them through this vendor connection portal. The other way that we're showcasing businesses is through our vendor directory. This is the public-facing component of the vendor program within the host committee. This is hundreds of businesses, Wisconsin-only businesses, and this will be used by delegates, by everyone coming into town as the go-to platform for where to go to eat. If you're planning an event and you're coming into town, all the different planning mechanisms, folks will be using the vendor directory as well. Like I said, we need thousands of volunteers. We need over 6,000 volunteers to be exact. We have close to 1,000, so still a long way to go, but ramping up this effort. So as I mentioned, the host committee is a nonpartisan organization, and volunteers will be volunteers for the host committee. We are just looking for Wisconsinites who are ready to make Milwaukee shine and the region shine. Wisconsinites know Wisconsin, and so it's going to be important to have folks who are really excited and prideful of their city and region to help folks find their way. So if anyone's interested in volunteering, here's a QR code. This will just lead you directly to the website where you can sign up to volunteer. We also have, the website is mke2024host.org/volunteers. We're also, it's a very grassroots effort currently to recruit volunteers. So we're working with numerous organizations in the region to get the word out. So if anyone is part of a company or an organization that you think would be interested in hearing about how they can volunteer, I'd love to work with you on that. You can email volunteers at mke2024host.org. We can find out more about that. So just to recap, again, we're going to welcome 50,000 plus folks in July, so we're really excited about that. With that comes an estimated economic impact of $200 million. And so we're really looking to engage businesses and the local community in that effort. And so, yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay, if I open it to any questions, or thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Sorry to make you wait a little bit. Any questions from anyone on the council? Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Allie.
All right, we've made it through up to item 7. There are no ordinances. Brings us on to resolutions. Resolution 4099, a resolution approving a development and dedication agreement with Mequon Thiensville Little League and Mequon Heat for a batting cage improvement project at Renicky Field. This was recommended by Park and Open Space Board on January 17th and was recommended this evening by Finance and Personnel.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Alderman Strelchak.
Just a quick note, we appreciate everything that this group is doing to keep our youth sports alive and active within the community. We also did highlight in our finance and personnel meeting just, a reminder that we are, looking at the civic campus and deciding what we're doing moving forward. So we did talk about the fact that, although we're welcoming this with open arms and gratitude, that things may change, several years down the road.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alderman Bach?
Once the city takes ownership of this, is the city's responsibility to maintain? Is it just kind of passing the baton, or will Timba Heat take care of it in the future?
Excellent. Any other questions? This is a donation, so I don't think we need to call a roll. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Congratulations. That item is approved. Moving on to Resolution 4100, a resolution awarding a design contract for the replacement of various HVAC units and other upgrades to the City Council, Common Council chambers at City Hall to Strang of Waukesha, Wisconsin, in the amount of $90,000. This recommendation forthcoming from Public Works.
This was unanimously recommended. I move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? I think this bill came in quite a bit cheaper than high-end estimates from last year when the HVAC failed, so that's good. Good job getting a good price.
Well, if I may, Mayor, just to jump in, this is for design.
Oh, for design. Oh,
Only,
well, that's why it's so
yes.
cheap.
Yeah, and there's still some work to do. So with this contract award as proposed this evening, we will be engaging Strang to do the necessary drawing work, and then we'll come back with documents that can be put out to bid for any and all components that we choose to design. So just a point of clarification.
All right. Any other comments or questions?
Thank you for clarifying. I had no idea that was the case. I thought we were approving some of these things tonight. So thank you.
That's
I would,
Big
I
project.
would note that there's some complications, you know, it's a complicated design, because of the age of our structure and the possibility of asbestos and having to keep up, appearances for our national, historic, situation externally to the building. There's some design that is more complicated.
Kind of what you get with an older patchwork building. Yeah. All right, this is a large sum of money. Is there any other discussion? If not, please call the roll.
Alderman Strelchuk,
Aye.
Alderman Talaco,
Aye.
Alderman Meyer,
Aye.
Alderman Hancher,
Aye.
Alderman Bach,
Aye.
Alderman Parrish,
Aye.
Alderman Schneider,
Aye.
Alderman Gebhardt.
Aye.
The ayes have it. And that resolution passes. On to Resolution 4101, resolution approving the purchase of 2 Sterelli Coney mobile column lifts. Hope I got that right. I'll go with my first attempt. From Midwest Equipment Specialists of McFarland, Wisconsin, the amount of $30,994. A recommendation also forthcoming from Public Works.
Unanimously recommended. Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? Alderwoman Schneider.
This lift makes it easier and safer for our staff to work on our larger trucks, which is actually a big benefit for us to have them do this in-house. And I also want to note, since the last element was costly, that we are sharing the cost with this with the sewer district and with our sewer and with Softy.
Correct, yeah, in rough a proportion to how much those entities use the equipment, yeah. Thank you. Any further comments or discussion? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Alderman Talaco,
Aye.
Alderman Meyer,
Aye.
Alderman Hancher,
Aye.
Alderman Bach,
Aye.
Alderman Parrish,
Aye.
Alderman Schneider,
Aye.
Alderman Gebhardt,
Aye.
and Alderman Strelchuk.
Aye.
That item is also approved. On to Resolution 4102, a resolution authorizing supplemental inspection services in excess of $25,000 during the 2024 construction season with the following engineering firms: Grafe, Kapur and Associates, M Squared, North Shore Engineering, R.A. Smith, and Rupert Milkey. Recommendation forthcoming from Public Works.
Also unanimously recommended. I move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? Alderwoman Schneider.
I will say this is a pass-through cost that is paid by the developer, so this is not something that's costing our taxpayers anything.
Correct. It just allows us to execute it so we can be reimbursed later. Thank you for that clarification. Hearing and seeing no other comments or questions, please call the roll.
Alderman Meyer, Alderman Hancher,
Aye.
Alderman Bach,
Aye.
Alderman Parrish,
Aye.
Alderman Schneider,
Aye.
Alderman Gebhardt,
Aye.
Alderman Strelchuk,
Aye.
and Alderman Talaco.
Aye.
The ayes have it as well. Our last resolution, Resolution 4103, a resolution approving a second amendment to an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Mequon and the Village of Thiensville, establishing the Southern Ozaki Fire and Emergency Medical Services Department. Recommendation forthcoming from Public Safety.
Yeah, public safety met, Mayor, and there was agreement to move this forward to the council. There was some discussion about the contribution, Mequon Thiensville contribution, that the committee wanted council to weigh in. I know this is a kind of a growing relationship, and it's very important for the department. So I'm gonna move approval, and we'll let the other topics come out in discussion.
All right.
Second.
Motion and a second. So it's before us for discussion. So maybe I'll explain it conceptually, and then I think maybe Chief, come on up. The original intergovernmental agreement contemplated that we would, when we got to the fleet consolidation, which is slated to be done this year as a 2024 item, that each municipality would ask Southern Ozaki to buy back the equipment at a 3% interest rate and take money from the fire department to give it back to the municipality so we could make turn around and give it back to the fire department again as our annual apportionment. We're also in the process of establishing capital reserve accounts, which both the city and Thiensville had accounts for, saving for the eventual replacement of their equipment. And we are also contemplating merging those funds together at SOFD. And the concept behind this change to the intergovernmental agreement sought to do those two things in one action, and it actually works out rather nicely budgetarily, because after you take Mequon's capital accounts, which has a little more cash than Thiensville's, according to the intergovernmental agreement agreed upon ratio, that roughly 85%, and you take Thiensville's equipment, who had a little more equipment compared to their percentage, and you merge it all together, at least as of it stood as of when this was drafted, and it might have changed by now because our money continues to make money sitting in the bank. All we would have had to have done is basically write Thiensville a check for $4,000 to perfectly balance it out. And we would have our fleet consolidated and capital accounts merged all in one action with no clunky accounting going forward for the next 10 years. So that is it conceptually. The balance of cost between the fleet and the capital accounts is all done and was all done in concert with the previously agreed to percentages in the IGA, so that's not a different percentage. It's just the outcome of merging all those nearly $2.88 million worth of various assets, whether they be actual physical assets or cash. And that $4,000 represents a mere 0.14% of that total transaction. So it's almost a rounding error. So are there any, sounds like there were some questions at public safety. Does anyone want to get them out there now? Alderwoman Flacco.
So tonight I did bring up, I was a little shocked to see that Mequon would be giving Thiensville any money after this merger. First, I want to say is, like, I love the fact that we merged. What it has done for our community is tremendous. The fact that both Mequon and Thiensville can now say, like, hey, we have coverage 24/7. If you need us, we're here for you. I love that. You know, my philosophy is that a fire department is a service department. It's not meant to make money. It is a service that we need to provide as a community to our residents. It's always in our best interest to do so. When we did merge, Mequon brought substantially more than what Thiensville could bring to the table, and obviously that's due to partly of our size. And I was just looking at the numbers, and I wasn't along the path for the entire merger, but I did try to go back and, like, read in the minutes and stuff. Now, it's my understanding that Thiensville Fire Department would not have been feasible without them raising their taxes had they not merged. So they were going to be running at a major deficit. So when I see the bottom line and I see that Mequon's going to give Thiensville a check after all of the tremendous work that Mequon has really done to help support kind of our little brother, I don't agree with that. And I'm not trying to be petty about it, but I feel like it should kind of be a wash at this point, and that the money should stay within Southern Fire Ozaki to help support the people that we have hired and to support the community and stay in there than writing Thiensville a check.
Thank you. I'll add that we are bound by a cost-sharing agreement that this body and their body also approved, and we're not here to redebate that percentage. It's actually, it was pretty favorable percentage for Mequon cost-wise. And I don't think we're not voting on whether to re-establish a new cost-share ratio. I think that would be a dead-end argument with Thiensville anyway. We put a lot of work into establishing that. And it is just $4,000. This doing it this way actually keeps more money in SOFD, because otherwise, if we stick to the original IGA, SOFD will be paying Mequon and Thiensville back interest on our vehicles we already bought and capitalized. And talk about not making it a business. I didn't buy a bunch of capital hardware for the fire department to sell it and make money on it in the future. I bought it because it keeps our community safe. This will literally save tens of thousands of dollars of needless interest payments going back to communities when it could be kept within the capital accounts of Southern Ozaki Fire Department. So if we're worried about saving $4,000, we're going to be spending tens of thousands of dollars to go back to the original agreement. It will just hamstring the fire department for the next 10 years as they continue to buy the equipment back from us. Any other comments? Alderman Meyer.
You know, I'm gonna vote for this, but because we're so far down the road in that. But you know, I guess it's just the optics, I guess, of having to, and it's just not the $4,000 because that's, but you know, it's $187,000 that Thiensville is getting back. You know, and I think with the combination of the two departments and what that brings together, I think that we shouldn't be sending back money to the community, I mean, to the cities or the communities for it. I mean, it should be something that's contributed to the fire department. And I hope that Thiensville and Goodwill sends that back over to them so that they can keep this stuff viable inside of it. But I'm going to vote for it tonight, but it just kind of seems the optics, like I said, seems wrong to give them a check, you know, in helping, and that should be going to the fire department itself.
I certainly appreciate and understand that, but we did enter into a cost-sharing agreement with a percentage of cost share that was written down in black and white numbers, and I don't think we can do anything but abide by that. Alderwoman Talaco.
Yeah, I'll just make my last comment, because Alderman Meyer was able to elegantly say it a little bit better. I'll vote in favor of it tonight, but I do want it on the record and with Thiensville going forward that we're united as one, and I would like to see them step it up as a community, providing better. I would go as far as trying to make amendment tonight of just saying, hey, Thiensville, I accept this, but I want that $4,000 to stay within the Southern Fire Ozaki. It sounds like you're saying that that's not an option due to the IGA agreement. But I just want them to be made aware is like, we're working together with you, and you also need to be contributing as well.
They'll contribute to the penny exactly per the cost-sharing agreement that we signed. I can't ask them to do any more. That's not the agreement they signed. I mean, we're in a contract, basically. If they gave any more, it would be a donation. Any other comments from the rest of the council? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Alderman Hancher.
Aye.
Alderman Bach.
Aye.
Alderman Parrish.
Aye.
Alderman Schneider.
Aye.
Alderman Gebhardt.
Aye.
Alderman Stralchuk.
Aye.
Alderman Talaco.
Aye.
And Alderman Meyer.
Aye.
And that item is approved, thankfully. There is no unspecified or specified unfinished business from prior meetings, no specified new business. We do have one potential closed session item. Filings of Katie Hobbins, or the woman formerly known as Katie Hobbins. There's been a legal name change, I guess. Common Council may convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85, Prin 1, Prin G, for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, and may reconvene into open session to take such action as deemed appropriate. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
Motion to go in closed session?
Second.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Alderman Bach.
Aye.
Alderman Parrish.
Aye.
Alderman Schneider.
Aye.
Alderman Gebhardt.
Aye.
Alderman Stralchuk.
Aye.
Alderman Talaco.
Aye.
Alderman Meyer.
Aye.
Alderman Hancher.
Aye.
And Mayor Nurbin.
Aye. We will now convene into closed session, and we will not come back. We will adjourn in closed session. Good night, everyone.